Okay, hi guys. Today we're going to look at a few other stories of Alexander the Great, and I know that you guys have already heard some legends of him before and have kind of gotten your ideas of whether you think he's great or not great. And so today, by reading these two stories, we're going to find out some other things, whether he might be great or not great. So first, before we start, I want to ask you guys, does anyone know how long ago Alexander the Great lived? Do you know when he was born or anything like that? Was it recently or a long time ago?
Really long time.
Yeah, it was about 356 BC, so that's pretty long time ago. Do you think that they had TVs or iPads or anything like that?
No.
Do you think that they used the words YOLO or swag?
I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not. So similarly to how they did things that we did things that they didn't really do, they're gonna do things that we don't do, and they have objects that we probably don't have. So that's why I want to pass out our vocabulary sheets to you guys. And these have pictures on them of the words that we're going to be learning. And the words are at the bottom of the page that you can see. And as we come along these words in our text, we're just going to stop and we're going to use our context clues. Who can tell me what context clues are?
Clues are surrounding the word, usually in the same sentence, tell you what it is.
Yeah, so the words around the word or sentences before the word that might help us figure out what it is. So when we come across a vocab word, we're going to think, oh, what could it mean based on what we read before that? And then we're going to relate it to one of the pictures that we see on here, and then we're going to write the definition in our own words so that we'll be able to remember it the next time we need it, okay? So, I first want to ask you guys, what do you think when you see, or when you think of a helmet, just in our life today? Yeah. What do football helmets look like? Are they big or small? They have masks. Their colors. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, this legend is called the Legend of the Helmet, so their helmets were a little bit different. This is an example of a helmet that they might have. It looks a little bit different. Or this one, this is more of a cartoon. So, I just want you guys to remember that, because we're not really talking about football helmets or maybe even motorcycle helmets or anything like that. So, as we start reading the first story, I just kind of want to set the scene for you. Alexander and his army have been walking for a long time. They are tired, they are thirsty, they've been walking, they're coming from India, and they're going all the way to Persia, which is about 1,755 miles, and they're walking, and that's a long time. It would take, it's about 45 miles from here to Branson. Would you like to walk that far in the heat? No, so can you imagine over 1,000 miles? Yeah, that would be pretty terrible. Okay, so as we remember those things, we are going to start reading. So everyone, I'm going to start reading this note up here at the top, and it says, is everyone there? Yes. Okay. Ancient biographers of Alexander told these stories. They are retold here by Arrian and a modern-day historian. True or not true in their details, these stories reveal two sides of Alexander that were probably accurate. So what should we think about probably accurate? What should we be thinking in our brains?
I'll give you about 2 minutes. But it could still have bias or could still be kind of not fully true.
Yeah, so it's not fact. It's not set in stone. Alright, let's read this first story, remembering what a helmet looks like I showed you. And remember that they're very exhausted and they've been walking for a long time. Okay, we're going to start up here. The army was crossing a desert of sand. The sun was already blazing down upon them, but they were struggling on under the necessity of reaching water, which was still far away. Alexander, like everyone else, was tormented by thirst. Alright, that's a vocab word. Do you guys see it at the bottom? Tormented? You can circle that or highlight it if you want. By using our context clues and how even I read the sentence, what do you think the word tormented maybe means in this context? Does it sound like a happy word? He was tormented with thirst? No. Yeah, no.
Come on, tell me what you think the word tormented is.
So the word tormented, it means cause pain or suffering. So they are in so much pain because they haven't had water in so long. Did any of these pictures look like someone might be in pain? I know some of them are cartoons. Yeah. So that's probably not exactly how Alexander the Great looks, but that will help us remember that tormented means he was in so much pain or suffering. So you can write down whatever you think your own definition of tormented means. and you can just put your pencils down when you're done.
How about talents?
Good. Does anyone want to share what they said? It wasn't anything different than what we already talked about? No? Okay. So we're going to start back up here. Alexander, like everyone else, was tormented by thirst, but he was nonetheless marching on foot at the head of his men. What does that mean, at the head of his men?
In front, the leader.
Yeah, I wanted to show you guys this picture. So this would be all of his army, and this would be Alexander right up here. He was at the front. He wasn't like, alright guys, I'm the king, I'm the most important, so I'm just going to hang back here and I'm going to be safe. No, he was at the very front. He was charging ahead. Do you think that that's probably a pretty dangerous spot, or do you think he's safe from the bad guys, from the opposing army?
It's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Danger zone.
Yeah. What does that say about his personality and his attitude towards his men?
He's like one of them.
Yeah, I agree.
He wouldn't ask them to do something he was not willing to do.
Exactly. I think that's a great way to put it. Okay. So, but nonetheless, he was marching on foot at the head of his men. It was all he could do to keep going, but he did so. And as a result, as always, was that the men were better able to endure their misery when they saw it was equally shared, just like you said, Cassidy. As they toiled on, that's a vocab word, as they toiled on, that's kind of a tricky one because it doesn't give us a lot of context clues. But just from what we've been reading before, do we think that's a verb or an adjective? That might be a good place to start. Or a noun, I guess.
Forget what I just said. Let's,
verb. Yeah, it's a verb. So they toiled on. Any guesses? You can use your pictures to help you if you need.
Maybe this turtle who looks kind of sluggish.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It means moved slowly or with difficulty. So, referring to Alexander the Great, how do you think they toiled on? Put that in your own words.
still very far away.
They were just okay. So they were walking slowly. They're still thirsty and they're walking slowly. Okay. A party of light infantry which had gone off looking for water found some. Alright, let's go back to that word infantry. So it kind of sounds like there's people, since they were doing something, they had gone off looking for water and found some. Look at your vocab.
What do you think that says?
Did you find a picture that might be an infantry? Yeah, an infantry is a group of soldiers. So that just means a group of soldiers went off and they were looking for some water. They went away from the group for a little while. Good job. Okay, so a party of the light infantry which had gone off looking for water found some. Just a little wretched trickle, just a little bit of water collected in a shallow gully. Has anyone heard of the word gully before?
Entire cupful, or do you think it was just a little teeny tiny bit?
No. It's just a little puddle of water. It's even smaller than a river. It's just like a little trickle. So it's going to be this picture right here. Yeah, perfect. They scooped it up with difficulty what they could and hurried back to Alexander. Then, just before they reached him, they tipped the water into a helmet and they gave it to him. Alexander, with a word of thanks for the gift, took the helmet and, in view of all of his troops, poured the water right on the ground. So extraordinary was the effect of this action that the water wasted by Alexander was as good of a drink for every man in the army. So what just happened?
He didn't drink it.
Yeah, he didn't drink it. Why not?
I don't know, that was silly.
I know, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, how do you think that affected his men? Do you think that how did that change their attitude of the trip?
He probably respected him.
Yeah.
For not drinking it.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, so we found some of our vocab words in the first part, and we noticed some great things about Alexander in this first story. So let's move on to the second one. And this one's called The Legend of the Hatband, okay? And the hatband is kind of like on the helmet. and it's just a part of it. It's just a part of the helmet. I didn't find a picture of it, but I will before we teach. Okay. Okay.
5 more minutes.
Let's start. Okay. Alexander was himself steering the trireme, and that is, it gives us the definition right here at the front, or right here on the page, and it says a warship with oars, and I brought one, and I know it has one on your vocabulary sheets, but I brought one for us. Oars. Can someone point out and show me what the oars are? You don't really hear that word that much. Yeah, it's the thing. So each man would be carrying, or would be holding a oar, and they push and pull, and that's how it makes the boat move. Okay? So he's steering the boat when a strong gust of wind fell on his broad-brimmed Macedonian hat and the band that encircled it. The hat, being rather heavy, fell into the water. However, the band was carried along by the wind and was caught by one of the reeds growing near the tomb.
Hey, that's a vocabulary word.
It is. Let's use our context clues to help us out in our pictures. What do you think, Dakota?
Well, that's water.
Yeah.
And they're on a warship.
You're right. So the reeds are kind of just, they grow in mossy areas. They're just kind of plants that grow up. And so the wind blew his hat band all the way over and it was stuck. So the boat couldn't really drive over or swim over there to get it. So one of the sailors swam off towards the band and snatched it from the reed, but he did not carry it on his own hands because it would get wet while he was swimming. So this was obviously a really expensive hat, maybe because Alexander was the king, so this sailor was making sure that he was going to keep it in the best condition he could. He therefore put it around his own head and brought it to the king. Most of the biographers of Alexander say that the king gave him a talent, and we see that little star there, and if we go to the bottom it says more than $10,000. So this was no small gift that Alexander gave him. So he gave him $10,000 as a reward for his zeal. Does anyone recognize that word?
It's a vocabulary word.
It is. Do you see that it could match any of the pictures?
She's really excited.
She is excited. So Alexander is saying that the sailor was so excited to go get his hat, and he had a lot of devotion for Alexander. So he gave him a reward for his zeal. Then he ordered his head to be cut off because the prophets, which are people that can they predict the future, had explained that he should not allow the head that had worn the royal headband to be saved. So he gave him his reward, and then he cut his head off. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, take a minute.
What do you guys think about that?
Did he have time to even send the reward?
I don't know.
That's the real question.
I know. So many questions that have to do with that. But I think that's a good way to be thinking because with these letters we don't know exactly what happened, but it's a good way to be thinking. Okay, so I want us to go back to these questions and we're going to, you guys can fill them out on your own and then we'll talk about them after.
3 minutes.
Oh, oops, we forgot to do one.
Number 3. How is Alexander able to turn
Talk about number 1. Why did Alexander pour the water on the ground?
What did you put down?
Why would he pour the water on the hot desert sand? And do you think that's a good quality? Why would he want himself to In the second story, why did he give the soldier who saved the hatband a reward? What would be the purpose behind it? Honoring his bravery, he went out of his way to do something for the king.
Okay.
But then why did he have it?
Okay, and I made a mistake because even teachers make mistakes, and we forgot to go over Macedonia, and that's just where Alexander was from, so that's where he was the king of. So that hat that he was coming from, that was specific to that region. Okay, so the first question in the first story, why did Alexander pour the water on the ground? Cassidy, what do you think?
To prove a point.
Yeah.
Basically that he wouldn't drink if his men couldn't.
Yeah. Do you think that was noble of him, or do you think that would be go under something great or something else?
Probably something great.
Yeah. Great. Okay, and the second story, why did Alexander give the soldier who saved the hat band a reward? And then why did he order the man's head cut off?
He gave him a reward because he was happy that he cared so much for him and his hat. So he cut his head off because of the promise.
Yeah. Yeah, so it could kind of go into both things. Both great and not great. Because on the opposite side of that, what do you think? Do you think it was okay that he didn't follow the rules, or do you think that it was okay that he did follow?
And if you have time, give an example from the story.
There's not a right or wrong answer.
Alright, it's time to wrap it up.
Okay. And my extension activity was going to be, there's no way I'm ever going to get to the extension activity, but they were going to be able to pick one of the stories and act like a soldier and then write to Alexander like, oh, thanks for not drinking the water, like I appreciated that, or why did you cut off my friend's head or something. Okay, the end.
All right.